Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some very interesting news today. But before I get on to the main news stories of today, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. As you know, it really does help. So let's get on to the first news story of today. And this is, has Ramaphosa actually converted to Islam? I don't know, but you can let me know what you think of this clip right here.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
So for those of you who don't know what you're seeing here is Ramaphosa doing the Muslim call to prayer. Now, Ramaphosa is apparently a member of the Zion Christian Church, an African-initiated church founded in South Africa in 1924. Now, the Zion word should not be confused with Jewish Zionism or support for the modern state of Israel. Rather, it refers to the biblical image of Zion. So that's Jerusalem, the heavenly city, if you want to call it that. So the Zionist Christian Church aren't exactly what you'd call Zionists, so per se. For those of you who don't know, South Africa's foreign policy under the ANC has long been pro-Palestinian and is aligned with Muslim majority countries going back to the Mandela era. Now, according to them, this is all part of the struggle solidarity with the Palestinian Authority and Arab states who had supported the ANC with money, weapons, and diplomatic recognition. And so in response, they say they will align with those countries in order to provide solidarity with those countries. Now, according to the ANC, Israel is an oppressor state, with the Palestinian issue being framed as one of an anti-colonial liberation movement, equating the fight with the ANC's struggle against apartheid. So again, I'm looking at it going, why exactly has a Christian bowed to Allah? And apparently, according to Ramaphosa, the reason is that it's a gesture of solidarity and respect when visiting Muslim communities, especially during Ramadan, funeral, or political events. According to him, it's no different from Christian leaders who put on kippahs when they go to synagogues or attend a Hindu temple ceremonies without converting. According to him, it was also very famous for Nelson Mandela and Jacob Zuma, who had both been filmed as participating in Muslim prayers as a sign of unity. So do let me know what you think of all of this in the comments section below. Personally, I don't bow to no one, so I wouldn't be caught dead doing this. But that's just me. So moving on to the next news story of today. And this is the news that the Finance Minister Enoch has met with CEOs of South Africa's biggest banks to discuss the risk of US sanctions. Now, the concerns include South Africa potentially being kicked out of the SWIFT payment system, similar to how Russia was. Now, the sanctions stem from the US-SA Bilateral Relations Review Act, which has been driven by the Republican Ronnie Jackson, which accuses South Africa of siding with, well, Russia, China, and Hamas. Now, the US has already imposed 30% tariffs on South Africa, with Zimbabwe and Lesotho hit at only 15%. So currently it's more competitive for you to work with Zimbabwe than South Africa. Now, the ANC's Fikile Mbalula declared that if we're going to suffer through sanctions, so be it. Not this ANC, not this leadership. Well, I don't really know what he thinks he's going to suffer because it's really going to hurt. So he's being really brave. But at the same time, they're going to the banks and how bad is it actually going to be? And the answer is pretty bad. Now, the cabinet is pushing a revised trade deal with the US to avoid fallout and protect over 130 trading partners from, well, goods dumping. But so far, the actual agreement hasn't gone that far, with the key sticking point being, well, BEE. It's always BEE. Now, in retaliation, Jonas, the former Deputy Finance Minister, you remember Jonas, the MTN guy? Well, he penned a letter which basically addressed what he felt was going on. Now, for those of you who don't know who Jonas was, he was remembered for refusing the Gupta family's infamous 600 Rand bribe during the height of the state capture in 2016. And this meant that he built a reputation as being one of the cleaner ANC figures. I mean, I don't really know how many of these clean ANC figures there are, apart from 0. And that ultimately led to him becoming the chairman of the MTN Group in 2018. Now, Ramaphosa appointed him as the special envoy to Washington, D.C., tasked with repairing deteriorating ties between South Africa and the US. But for those of you who don't recall, well, he got kicked out of that position because he was on camera for basically slating the president, and he said some pretty horrendous things. Now, Jonas has, according to him, issued a letter where he denounced what he calls a coordinated information war designed to render South Africa a pariah state. And he accused domestic actors, well-connected South Africans, of colluding with US right-wing groups and media to undermine Pretoria's credibility abroad. So pretty much solidarity and probably Elon Musk, because that's all these guys ever seem to think of. Now, he described the campaign as involving dirty tricks, defamatory allegations, and treacherous actions, comparing its scale to Bill Pottinger's disinformation project, but far more dangerous. But you see, he's the one who called Donald Trump a racist, homophobe, and a narcissist. So don't go blaming everybody else for your own inability to actually be the special envoy because of stupid shit you said. This is the ANC all over. It's always everybody else's fault. It's never their own, even though they are the very people undermining the country. Now, the US Department of Justice has launched a grand jury investigation into MTN's operations in Iran and Afghanistan. And the allegations are that MTN paid protection money to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan so that it could operate safely. Furthermore, they bribed officials to secure a 49% stake in Irancell in 2005. Now, families of over 200 US soldiers killed in Afghanistan have filed lawsuits accusing MTN of aiding terrorism. And Turkish rival Turkcell is also suing MTN for $4 billion US, alleging corruption in Iranian licensed deals. Jonas claims that MTN is being used as a scapegoat in the wider geopolitical storm over South Africa's stance on Israel and Gaza. Now, an MTN insider said, "We're caught in a geopolitical fight that has nothing to do with us. People are using MTN to punish South Africa for taking Israel to the ICJ." And the presidency accused the DA as being part of this right-wing nexus for spreading rumors about Jonas's visa denial. Even though Jonas's visa denial wasn't a rumor, it actually happened. Now, investors remain very wary because whilst they like the MTN African growth story, they do fear fines or sanctions if US courts rule against the group. So let's keep in mind what actually happens in that lawsuit. Now, yesterday, Cyril Ramaphosa also issued or penned a letter of his own. This is fresh on him being in Japan. Now, he said that South Africa's foreign policy is based on national interest, multilateralism, and economic diplomacy. And he said that he framed South Africa's approach as facing forward, neither east nor west, but strategic partnerships. And Ramaphosa, I call bullshit. This is not how you work. You typically align with anybody who goes against the West because, in your view, you consider the West to be a bunch of colonizers and, Western imperialism and white supremacy and whatever other garbage that comes out your mouth. But you see, the reality is that under the ANC, South Africa faces east to countries aligned with communism, because this unholy alliance between communism and Muslims is an alliance of the idea being, if you align with the communists and the Muslims, you can fight against the West and capitalism. I mean, let's not talk bullshit, yeah? We all know this to be true. Now, Ramaphosa, in his letter, defended taking Israel to the ICJ, calling it a matter of principle. Yeah, ANC and principles don't really go together. He highlighted peace efforts in Lesotho, Burundi, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and even Russia and Ukraine. But you never took Russia to the ICJ, did you? You also haven't taken anybody in Syria who's attempting to commit genocide against the Druze community. How about all of the people currently being slaughtered in South Sudan? How about all the Christians currently being killed in Nigeria? Haven't seen you take any of those countries to the ICJ. And so one has to ask the question as to why you feel certain forms of politics are more important than others. In any case, he says South Africa's diplomacy will remain independent of outside pressures. And this is his attempt to basically say he won't be pressurized by the United States to change his foreign policy. You would change your foreign policy if you were only interested in economic diplomacy, because the majority of our economics come from those countries. So don't talk rubbish. We're not that stupid, or maybe some of your voters are, but we're not. In any case, the former minister, Nalandi Pandor, admitted that the ANC has lost its former greatness. And this is with the news that support has fallen below 30% in the polls. Now, she spoke at a memorial lecture urging ANC renewal through morality, grassroots rebuilding, and women's leadership. Yeah, okay, whatever. She said the public now looks at the ANC with disdain, horror, and shame. Well, that's 100% true. We do, because the ANC are just horrendous. She called corruption the biggest fault line and warned leaders about forgetting the fact that they exist to serve the people. But you see, ANC ministers have forgotten that for a long time. They think that actually going to serve the people means that it's, well, a form of self-enrichment. Everybody knows that. She actually linked the ANC's decline to corruption, gang violence, and poor governance, but said renewal was still possible. And to that, I call bullshit. Renewal is not possible for the ANC because there is no one left in the ANC that has the slightest shred of credibility. Ramaphosa was the last attempt at the ANC to put someone forward that was credible, that could save the economy and progress the country. And he failed dismally. So if the best you've got is just horrendous, why would we trust anything else? We all know virtually every ANC individual you put forward has a corruption scandal somewhere. It's like almost 100% certain. You can just look at them and go, oh, I bet there's a corruption scandal, and there usually is. Anyways, the actual poll that she's referring to is the poll that pits the ANC at just 29% nationally, down from 40% last year, and it puts the DA at 28%, just 1 point behind the ANC. Now, the ANC has been overtaken by the DA in 5 key metros, which include Johannesburg, with the ANC at 23%, the DA at 40%. Remember, Johannesburg is where Helen Zille could potentially be running. Swane at the ANC at 27%, with the DA at 48%. Ekurhuleni, ANC at 19%, DA at 41%. Cape Town is still DA dominant at 61%, ANC only 19%. God, wish that could be everywhere. And eThekwini with the ANC in 3rd place behind the DA and BMK party. So insiders admit that the ANC is in deep trouble, even in its strongholds, and that's because the ANC is a pile of crap. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, that's the news. Jonas talking complete out of his backside, and Cyril kind of saying the same rubbish, with everybody knowing that the ANC is on its last legs, and by God, can it not just die any quicker? In any case, these are just my views. Do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until tomorrow, bye.